Everyone, and welcome to the sunny Spanish city of Valencia, known for its dedication to arts, sciences, its glorious beaches, and of course on top of that, its glorious dedication to esports. DreamHack has been here since 2011. We're back for another edition of the DreamHack Open Valencia, this time powered by FACEIT. I'm Richard Lewis, your host. With me, this tall drink of water next to me, it is Henry G.
It begins.
It begins. On the desk for the first time. How you doing, brother? You
Very
good?
well. You know me, Richard, London boy through and through. It's my first international event, and what a way to start it. Sunburnt, sweaty, but happy to be here ultimately. Beautiful city, and it's going to be a fantastic event.
I can't wait to roast you some more under these hot lights over the course of this broadcast.
Did you mean to say Coles?
Okay, that too. Anyway, we've got, of course, the premier casting duo in CSGO. It is the originals. It is Anders and Semler. How are you boys doing?
Everything's great, man.
Yeah, I'm starting to feel like every time you introduce us like that, people are going to start thinking we pay you to say that every time.
You do.
There we go, there we go.
Pay me. If you want an idea about how warm it is, look, no tie on Semler.
Wow.
That is actually not the reason, but okay.
It's Scorchio, boys. But anyway, so it's going to be an awesome event. We have got 8 of the best teams in the world competing for a $150,000 prize fund here at the Ferry of Valencia. What we're going to do is we're going to bring up the schedule to show you those games that we're going to bring to you over the course of the day. And you can see the show has started. I love how they always put the show starts there. Right, somebody at home's thinking, oh my God, I'm watching this. When does the show start? Come on, guys, get it together. You've got, of course, the losers match from Group A, which we'll tell you a little bit about. There's a bit of a spoiler down there at the bottom. That's coming up at 12:15. Then we're going to have Kingwin versus Virtus Pro, the losers match group from Group B, and then Liquid versus NIP. So those are the games. But equally as well, just to point out, over the course of the schedule, these are approximate times. I'm sure you've all watched enough CSGO now to realize that sometimes you can get blowouts, sometimes you can have epics, overtimes. And what we are going to do, if teams agree, we're going to try and have an accelerated schedule. So if teams agree to it and they're here in the building, we can maybe advance things a little bit quicker. If not, you'll have to wait for the designated time, but we will absolutely keep you posted. So just before we get into the recap of yesterday's game. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring you at home the bracket so you can see what you missed. Hopefully you didn't miss it, because there were some upsets, thrills, chills, and spills, and a great day of Counter-Strike, guys.
Absolutely. So, this is the
there we go.
Okay, so just to jump into things, I'll start with Group A. We had Cloud9 versus Kingwin to kick things off yesterday. Unfortunately, Kingwin for me never really showed up. It looked like they were quite lost on the map. Their CT side is very questionable. The only rounds they were really winning was big individual performances. Rain was a standout player for Kingwin. He seemed to be getting 1 or 2 frags almost every round, but ultimately Cloud9 outclassed them. I think the final result was 16-7 there. And then moving on to VP versus Navi. That was, of course, on Overpass, and it just seemed like Navi, for me, are the world's best team on Overpass right now. Like, arguably, they've had a couple of Roper results in it recently, but they just seem too strong. They managed to pick up 8 rounds on the T side of Overpass, and it was just a phenomenal performance from them. It was like a result, I think, is almost expected, but yeah, ultimately the correct one came through. But then there's a big surprise of the day up there. Cloud9 versus Na'Vi. And just to point out about this game, it finished 16-14 at Cloud9, but ultimately, I've got to say, it should have gone to overtime. When it was poised at 15-14, Cloud9 were on an eco with 1 scout, 4 pistols. Na'Vi on a full buy. They won like 4 or 5 rounds on the bounce to get there, and they weren't able to close out. And
where was Flamey this time?
Yeah, exactly. Well,
where was Navi's hero?
Here's what I want to ask you guys. Obviously, you watched the game. Just in particular that, we'll come back to Group B in a second. But, I mean, was that like a bit of a choke there by Na'Vi? Because you would have expected them to take it to overtime at least. Or did Cloud9 do something phenomenal in that pistol round?
I don't know. What is interesting, though, is the fact that Cloud9 actually historically have had a really hard time closing games. So if they can start moving into that phase where they can start doing that more, that'd be really good news. Na'Vi, I think, are usually strong on it. So, yeah, maybe a bit of a choke, I think, on Na'Vi's part.
Yeah.
Just to pick up on that, for me, the MVP of Cobbo as well was Shroud. He seemed to be such a linchpin, especially on the B-bomb site. They were just relying on him to just smoke up the upper area there, and he was walking out every single round, was making 1 frag. He might have been 1 for 1, but the majority of the time taking a frag down with him. And if you can make a cobblestone, a 4-on-4 situation at the beginning of the round, like, that's it, that's your job done. And it was, I was really impressed by his performance, and he's really stepping up recently.
And that was despite Na'Vi actually trying to change up the defense as well, putting a guy on the platform, putting a guy in a big box behind the tree, just trying to keep it
they couldn't lock
unpredictable.
Him down.
And yeah, he just went through that smoke every single time and came out with a headshot.
Yeah, I mean, it was a massive performance by him. We've already highlighted Shroud. He's getting back to that Euro killer status that he had back when he burst on the scene. You know, ESEA and ESL1 Cologne, and then he kind of went a bit quiet, wasn't doing quite so much. Great domestically, but now he's really arrived in international events. We'll bring up the graphic again so you can see what was going on in Group B. Some absolute powerhouses competing in that one. And of course, Fnatic versus Team Liquid. I'll let you give us the rundown on this, Semler, actually. So obviously, Fnatic started against Team Liquid. Team Liquid gave a good account of themselves in that game.
They did. I mean, they were able to get rounds. And Henry and I were talking about this earlier, you know, before we went live. It seems like Team Liquid, they're making progress, but they still aren't really close to picking up a map against some of the best teams. So I don't think it comes as a surprise that they went down to Fnatic. Fnatic, of course, going to be the clear favorites there. And then NiP TSM, that for me was a huge game just because it was so close on Mirage.
Yeah.
Okay, like NiP are in the process of bringing it back. They get up to 12-12, and you're thinking this could happen. NiP could actually take this. And then not sure what happened.
Well, come on, let's be real. Real talk. I'll do it then.
Well, okay,
there was an inexplicable push.
Yeah, basically Forest, like there were two pushes that happened. Forest decided to push top mid alone, and then there was a man pushing in B apartments alone, and both of them died. It put NiP in a 3-on-5 situation right off the bat. When you're thinking all they needed to do was play their game and play standard, they kind of threw that game away, really.
I mean, without sounding too condescending, I'm actually almost more surprised that NiP got that close to begin with. I thought for sure that TSM was going to destroy NiP on.
They looked almost lost a little bit on their T side. It wasn't until they got to CT they actually started to claw it back. But just a note on that push, I think a lot of teams like invest too heavily on playing safe when you do get it to a position where you could potentially take it. I agree that pushing in that situation was potentially the wrong approach, but pushing and surprising teams for me is like one of the best things you can do. You kind of keep dynamic, but their push in that situation was the wrong kind of push. Forest
it was the linchpin moment in the game. Whoever lost that round was likely to lose.
Going up middle was absolutely fine in CT. Like, you can surprise terrorists, and you just need the crossfire set up. Forest going up alone was that was where the problem started. He got taken down by Device straight away, and at that moment they closed themselves out of the round before it even begun. They went on the offensive, and Forest going down forced him onto an eco, and ultimately that was the turning point.
And then Fnatic versus TSM.
A little bit of emotion shown on the Fnatic side in that game.
And apparently I don't watch many Fnatic games, according to Olaf, right? But I was just like, that is the first time I've seen like Flusha pick up his keyboard and slam it after
he picks up his mouse a lot, though.
That's it. You know, this time he was deciding to step it up. Hey, but yeah. So it was very heated over on Fnatic's side. There was quite a bit of back and forth, and I don't think that's the Fnatic we're used to seeing, honestly.
I want to talk about that, actually. You know, Fnatic yesterday, for me, there was some problems. There was a lot of misfiring parts in the Fnatic machine. Usually that's so reliable. JW especially stood out as having a very poor day at the office. Not fragging, not dropping, not making the entry picks, missing easy shots that JW usually makes with his eyes closed, like almost literally. And as you said, a bit of emotion going on internally. Is this linked to any of the rumors going around at the moment? Because there's all this wild speculation about how, you know, oh, well, maybe some of Fnatic are going to go to NiP, and some of NiP are going to go to Fnatic, and maybe some deals going to be done behind the scenes. Is this starting to get to the players?
I don't know, but I think we could sort of like segue this into something Henry could talk about a little bit better. But generally speaking, in Counter-Strike, like half the battle is finding 5 people who want the same thing. But finding 5 people who want the same thing for, you know, more than a year, it's actually almost impossible. And Henry, obviously, you've got more experience with this.
Oh, like inter-team relationships is only something you can speculate about. What goes on behind closed doors, like no one has any idea. Like after the game finished yesterday, like we saw JW for the first time going 5 for 23 or something like that. Like, and it seemed as soon as the game finished, like the guys seemed so segregated. Like the team went off in their separate ways. A lot of tension building up there, and you can only, like we said, you can only speculate what's going on behind the scenes, what's going to happen going forward. There are rumors. We couldn't possibly comment whether any of them are true. NiP have come out and said that no lineup changes are happening. But after yesterday's performance, you have to kind of question what's going on within the team. They seem kind of broken right now.
I mean, actually, I've come to realize that even though it's kind of lame to bring this up as evidence, but sometimes when you do see teams not sort of stick together after the events, like, you know, at after parties or just generally outside of the venue, it actually is an indication that something is like, you know, not quite working. It's all right, you know, you don't have to all the time, you know, like 5 people holding hands outside. It's all right to go your separate ways every once in a while, but sometimes you do pick up like a tendency that actually these people are always together and the other 3 are not, and, you know, it becomes a bit weird, you know.
That's the whole thing with CS. Like, you have to be around these people all the time. Over the majority of your life, you're going to be in either the same room as them or online. If there's any sort of clashes in personality, that's going to be detrimental to the team. Like, if there's any sort of friction or even internal arguments, the fact it's happening at a LAN event, a professional team just with one of the world's best team, showing that kind of anger and slamming and having those internal arguments, like, suggests to me that something is going wrong. People aren't necessarily happy.
Yeah, it's going to impact, but I mean, that's also, like, that's kind of tension that you can't have in a match like this.
Absolutely,
like, the whole point of it, and when Fnatic have played at their best, is when they've been ice cold. Like, just sitting there, they communicate, they get a little up, but then they come right back down and keep it this good, even keel.
That's what they're known for.
I mean, you listen to their comms, or at least you used to listen to their comms, and it was always just super solid, super smooth, and now apparently there's bickering. Like, you start to hear that in the comms, and you're like, wait a second, what's happening there? Well, that's always got to be a telltale.
In my opinion, this is part of the sport. You know, this is part of what you as fans should enjoy. This is, you know, part of building a team and trying to keep a team together.
It's not a soap opera, right?
Well, no, but I mean, you can't have this without. If you can only like enjoy teams as long as then you'll only enjoy a team for like a couple of weeks, and then it's gone. You know, that honeymoon phase is going to be over pretty quickly.
Yeah, the human element is what we're effectively talking about.
Like that should be super important, and it's a real shame that we don't get to talk about it a bit more. And obviously, it's really hard for a lot of these teams. I mean, we try to interview them about it. They can't obviously come out and say, actually, this guy's really starting to piss me off. But you know, that's part of the really fun thing about the game as well, is just, you know, how do people, you know, clash with each other once they're in a team, and how do they come up with new teams then?
None of us are saying that that's not something that's important, but that's got to be a telltale that something's definitely amiss.
And not just something's amiss, something has changed. Yeah. Like, there's something, you know,
I mean, I think the big warning for everybody is once you have, like, the coach of the team, who used to be a player, who basically, like, might as well have had, like, Fnatic branded on his chest, leaves the team.
Yeah.
Well,
because he wants to be a player?
Yeah.
The biggest example of this is what we saw with Envious at the last event. Like, the fact that we watched that combo game versus Cloud9, like I can't even begin to dissect that properly as to how that went down. But when you see teams buying like three dualies and stuff like that, and then that's when obviously things are going wrong. Like that team
not dropping for each other, that was going on as well.
Like when you saw teams like players at 6K and it's allowing the other guys to get P90s and just hope for the best. Like, that's a classic example of something's gone horribly wrong.
Yeah.
You can tell, like, we didn't even have to get an announcement. We knew something was happening after that.
So what we're going to do is we're just going to quickly, because we have got a game today we're going to talk about. I want to get you guys to give me your thoughts about this matchup, and we're going to start by introducing Virtus Pro, a team that are known for their explosive interaction, shall we say, with each other, yet somehow they make it work. Somehow they've managed to stay together despite being very emotional and very emotive. So I'll start with you, Semler. I know you know these guys very, very well.
Talking about rosters that have stuck together for ages and have also had a lot of that
friction,
that friction, right? You know, just the core, Taz and Neo, and Pasha, you know, to an extent, but Taz and Neo have played together for like a decade now. Like, they've been together for so long, it's unheard of. And then you have Pasha joining in a few years later, and Bialy and Snacks are pretty much like the new generation, the new blood that's been injected into this team. And this current roster now has almost been going for like, what, 2 years?
Yeah.
An insane amount of time. So, like, this is probably the longest lasting roster in CSGO right now as it stands. And so they've always been a threat. They're so consistent, at least for the past year and a half, that just consistent top fours, consistent finishes. And so now, that's the problem, though. It's like you never really know with Virtus Pro which Virtus Pro is going to show up. Is it the Virtus Pro that's going to threaten to take the entire thing, or is it the Virtus Pro that's going to just fall in a random group phase match like we saw at Gfinity not too long ago?
Yeah. And who's going to be doing the calling, you know?
Snacks,
Neo,
changes every
Taz.
event, right? Like, it's just seemed like, no, this time we've got it locked down. Neo's going to do it, and the next event, it's changed.
Well, that isn't actually how it goes down. Generally what happens is, you think you can call better than me? Fine, you do it.
Well, mid-game.
That's how it goes down with Virtus Pro. They don't even hide that. It's just like they say, quite openly, actually. You know, if someone was overcalling me, fine, you do it. You do it then. Do a better job.
You said they were explosive, though. I mean, it's nothing compared to what it used to be when Luke was in the team, and, you know, they were actually literally fighting each other at LAN. So, you know, it's been worse than it is now. I've got to say, though, I really enjoy the idea of Snacks calling. You know, when he did it in Cologne, he had, like, his little black book when they were doing the videos, and he was looking... Like,
he take it very serious,
he seemed very well prepared. That was very cool. I like that.
Well, what we're going to do is we're going to get a bit more insight into Virtus Pro now, because we're going to throw over to the stage. We've got James Duffield, another part of the crew, and he's going to do a pre-match interview with a representative of Virtus Pro. Take it away, James.
Thank you very much, Richard. I am here with Cuban, coach of Virtus Pro. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you.
And coming in to today, yesterday you had a harsh loss, like a very close game. How was the atmosphere in the team last night? What were these guys talking about? What did you have to say to them to get them in the mood for going into today's games?
We are pretty known from throwing the game or winning the big numbers. So let's say we just threw the game yesterday, and yeah, we felt pretty bad because we just drew the game to 12-12. Then after the pause, we tried to play different style, but after the game, we just said that we could stay with the game style we have played before. So we'll try to play our game, not to change anything, just to play the different game against our opponents. Yep.
Is there anything specifically that you guys have had to research about Kinguin in this instance? But were you guys expecting to come up against these players this weekend?
Actually, we want to play our game. Like I said, we're not that much prepared against them because they haven't played that much before. Only the event in Slovenia, I guess. So we'll just try to play our best game, and they need to fear us, not us fearing them.
That's a very good point. But talking about fearing you, then you're a team that's been together for a very long time. You're experienced on pretty much all of these maps, right?
Yeah.
This is a new team that's been put together very recently. Are you guys going to be able to like out veto them? Are you going to be like thinking, okay, there's a lot of maps here these guys don't know, and we can make our lives a little bit easier here?
Yeah, I thought the map veto is going to be different. I thought they're going to pick me Rush, but they took the Dust 2 instead with the map which they lost yesterday, like big number 16-7. So we like to play Dust 2. It fits our play style. So yeah, we picked Train because they haven't played much. So yeah, I think both two maps are good for us, and even the Cache as a third map is a good setup for us.
Okay, and one last thing then, you were saying that you guys felt like you threw yesterday's game.
Yeah.
What's going to be different in the heads of these players now to make sure that they don't do that again? Like, are they ready for this?
Maybe the thing that yesterday we didn't have that much time to prepare. Like all the teams came like 1 hour before the game, and we didn't have that much time to prepare. Today we came 2 hours before, so they all played that much for at least 1 hour. Just we're now gonna talk what we're gonna play, the strats, and I think we're just ready to beat them.
Yeah. Perfect, very confident. That's very great to see. I'll let you get back to your team, and I'll pass back to Richard and the guys in the studio.
Thanks a lot for that, James, and it's great to see you back in the saddle after a bout out. It's always a pleasure to see the beautiful James Duffield doing his thing, his awkward brand of interviews, which I love. But yeah, he was, Cuban very confident there. Virtus Pro seemed to be like, we threw the game against Na'Vi. I don't know how necessarily true that.
Well, I don't know about, like, we need to be careful now about, like, the whole throw terminology. Like,
yeah,
the one thing,
oh,
once a guy says, oh, yeah, you threw it the other day, he's like, yeah, I'm just like, no, you didn't. You choked. Like,
choked.
You choked. Because throwing now in this community means a whole different thing, right? So like what happened with Envy in the semifinals, that was, a throw.
Yeah.
Now, what happens next? Like, that's a choke if you can't close the game.
Yeah, so they choked a little, but I don't even know if that was genuine. I agree with your assessment. I think Na'Vi are one of the best teams in the world in Overpass right now, and I think, Virtus Pro were always going to have the work cut out for them. Yep. But now they face Kinguin, and realistically, this should be a cakewalk for them, in my opinion.
This whole veto process for me is really surprising. Like, when you know you're playing against a team that's untrained and like they're brand new lineup essentially, like getting rid of their in-game leader, why you wouldn't veto Dust 2, in my opinion, like one of the biggest death matches in the game, it's crazy. I always said that they're not playing Dust 2. If you're a Smire, you'd get rid of all the classic maps and put them onto more of the exotic ones. And then
well, we will introduce Kinguin now, and I'll let you do this, Anders, because I know you've got lots to say about this ragtag bunch of renegades that have been brought together by Kinguin. So tell us about them.
Right, I mean, to me, this still seems like a crazy project, but I'm kind of intrigued anyway. Michael obviously, Swedish AWPer, very good, also very explosive, and has a big personality.
Yep.
Kind of fits in with the rest of the theme of the team here. Fox, Portuguese player, very strong. For a long time, has been in various different iterations of Portuguese teams, and it's always been like the hard carry. We've gone to Dennis, recently made it back into the game. An incredibly strong player, and I have serious doubts if Dennis is going to be able to be contained in this team. I think he's simply too good to be on this team. I think someone else will have to pick him up. Then obviously we've got Rain in there as well to help out. And then the whole thing disappeared. So
it's Scream, remember?
Scream,
there you go.
Yeah, that's the headshot machine.
You can't forget the human aimbot.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing that we were talking about before we went live here is always the issue that who's actually doing the calling on this team? Because I don't think, it
turns out nobody is.
Yeah.
They're doing calling by committee,
that's just not a thing, though, is it?
They're trying to make it a thing.
It's not. I can tell you right now, it's not a thing.
Like, Henry's got to put his foot down.
Having been an in-game leader for like 10 years, I tell you, if you've got 5 people trying to overcall you and thinking they're best, especially in a lineup with so many big personalities in it, it's just going to be a car crash straight away. And I think on maps like Dust 2, you can essentially get away with it. It's quite a simple approach. You kind of gain map control, and you have to ascertain where's the best place to go. But the more tactical maps like D-Train, we actually have to set things up and like read the other team, set up fakes. I really see that going horribly wrong.
Well, we're getting to dissecting that a little bit more. Just been told James is with Makalele. So see if he asks him the question. James, take it away.
Cheers, Richard. I am here with Makalele, as I say. Before we get into before we get into this match, I want to go through the kind of the lead up to this event. You guys are bit boot camping, right? How was boot camp for you?
Well, we didn't boot camp because we went here. We practiced 2 pracs, I think, two matches. So it was the second day we arrived. You guys said you want to come to Valencia, and was like, yeah, sure. And then it was a stressful day finding flights and etc. So we practiced two practice games in 1 day. So yeah, we didn't have any boot camp at all actually.
How did you feel when you got that call? Like, oh, you're coming to DreamHack?
I mean, it's always fun to go here. I feel at home at DreamHack, even though the table's on too low for me. But yeah,
you can go on your knees, right?
Yeah, last DreamHack, I like it on the knees.
Okay, I'm just gonna skim over that one. Yesterday's match against Cloud9 obviously didn't go the way that you wanted it to. What can you take from that match? What were the conversations that you guys were having last night about, look, this is our last chance now to stay in this tournament. What can we do?
Well, what happened against Cloud9 was that they just rushed us over. They just pushed everywhere. We couldn't do anything because we didn't know how to do it. Yeah, that was one thing. We cancelled ESWC, because we wanted to boot camp, but then we couldn't boot camp because we have a new in-game leader now. He's going to be our coach, Dalito. He's going to be the in-game leader for us. So we're taking the new step to have 5 players and 1 coach as in-game leader. But we didn't have time to practice or anything. So they just killed us. They just owned us.
So your coach isn't here at this event, right?
Yeah, he's here.
He's here, so he is in-game leading. How are you guys calling in-game at all, or how is that working at the moment?
Well, we haven't practiced it yet, so it's just improvising now. But we're trying, and I think it's going to be really good in time, because to have 5 players that can just concentrate to kill and just have one guy behind us talking what we're going to do, I think that's the future of CSGO.
Do you think that makes you quite unpredictable for other teams?
Yeah, kind of, but not that much. I mean, I think it will be better, but now it's gonna be like shaky and rusty, I think.
Okay, going into this next match then, VP obviously is a very experienced team who have been together for a long time. What are your chances here?
Virtus Pro is Virtus Pro. I played against them DreamHack Winter in the semifinal with NIP. I played against them a lot of times, and me personally that's probably my best matchup. I don't know why, but I feel comfortable when I'm playing against them. But yeah, it's going to be a tough match, and it's going to be really fun to play against these guys here. Yeah.
Well, we're looking forward to it. Everyone at home is looking forward to it. Go and join your team. Thank you very much for talking to me, and back to you guys in the studio.
I think he's found his spirit animal there, James, hasn't he? An interview with Makalele, always going to be good stuff. But look, so let's address the elephant in the room first off, right? So he's talking about how what they want to do is have the coach call for them and just have 5 fraggers. I think that's a great idea in principle. I definitely think having the guy stood behind the team in a quarterback role. Stop shaking your head, brother.
Just
hear me out. Hear me out.
Hear
me out. Just hear me out, all right? Yeah. I don't understand the traditions. Just listen, right? It's all new and frightening, right? Just listen. Right? So I think in principle that could work, but it certainly isn't going to work here because they haven't had time to practice or perfect it by the sound of things. So.
I mean, there was one team that really stuck to this hard. That was Hellraiser. So in the last major DreamHack Winter, when Blade was calling for the team. Yeah. So I mean, you can see that it can be effective, but you have to practice with that. You clearly have to work on it. I mean, you can't just have the 5 bots just waiting around. They need to figure out how Dalito is going to actually make this work, because he's going to have the oversight of 5 monitors to make those kinds of calls. I don't know. It's a bit much to just go right into it.
And it sounds great in principle, but if I know anything about players, If you're not liking what you're hearing from the coach, there's going to become an ego part's going to kick in, and you're going to be like, actually, I'm going to do my own thing.
I'm thinking there's a bigger concern, though. It's just the fact that, if Kinguin win this match, they might actually have to play on the main stage with those chairs again. I don't know how Michael's going to handle that. Is he going to be able to?
I never
He did mention desk height as well.
Yeah, desk height. I'm just like, come on. How many excuses do you need? Let's go ahead and just throw you under the bus right now.
Just the chair.
Seriously, no. But you got so many other players. Nobody's ever complained about this. Don't start busting out that excuse now.
It's a normal gaming chair, right? It's adjustable.
Everybody uses these chairs.
It's fine. I really don't entertain that.
But it's all right. He's hedging his bets.
We've got the veto. I know you had a point to make about the coach thing, but we'll try and tie it in with this. Okay. So you talk away, Henry.
So Dust 2 for Kinguin. I think this is a dream come true for them. The fact they get to be on, like I said, the Counter-Strike playground, the fragging ground. It's a great pick for them. I'm really surprised that VP actually kept this in. This is the only real chance I see of Kinguin actually getting a map. As we heard in the interview, Train, it's just going to be an absolute walker for VP. We saw them lose to Mouse Sports on Train at Gfinity. It went into overtime. But
that was a masterclass in tactical dissection by God B.
But that's what it takes to take a team like this down. You're not going to, as long as they play their normal game, like he said, he's not going to try and change too much. As long as they stick to their guns and don't do anything too crazy, don't overthink things, I don't see this going any way on Train especially. Dust 2 potentially might be a little bit closer depending on pistol rounds and whether they learned yesterday. We saw Cloud9 just running out middle yesterday, and there was no resistance whatsoever. It seemed like they were, as Michael said, kind of adapting and trying to work out actually how to even approach the map.
And then Cash is a potential decider, which is a great map for Virtus Pro. I mean, historically, they always do incredibly well on it. So tough start for Kinguin. But of course, Dust 2, they couldn't have really asked for anything better.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they should be happy that map's going to be in there. I'd still join with Henry in the 2-0 prediction. I think that's most likely. I mean, there is always the fact that Virtus Pro do sometimes show up and are a little bit slow to start. Maybe that could somehow help up, but the fact that Train's going to be the first map, I also feel like that means they're going to get that time to start. And I think for Kinguin, it's going to be very tough.
It's hard to see Kinguin coming out ahead because their main strength is basically fragging.
Yeah.
And the problem is that Virtus Pro, they have fraggers, but they also have the teamwork, the established strategies, everything, all the back end there. So whereas there's only one weapon over here, there's a whole arsenal over for Virtus Pro.
The whole things of having fraggers, right? If you can't utilize them and get in those positions to actually make those frags come to them, that's the whole thing that CS goes about. That's why I wanted to talk about the coach situation as well. An in-game leader, half of the battle is the mid-game calling. A person can say at the beginning of the round, "Oh, guys, I think you should do this." But when you're in the game and you're feeling out the map and you've got the caller is the one, mid-round calls the most important. If you can hear a certain footstep or you can kind of a gut feel, a lot of CS is just game sense experience, working out how the team react to things. As an in-game, a coach looking over the team, you just don't get that same feeling. You don't have that same connection with the game an in-game leader was. Part of my whole thing of in-game leading was working out what the other team were doing, listening to very subtle things going on and little diff changes. And I really don't think a coach can bring that. I think the best role for a coach is analyzing the other teams. He has the playbook and every other team there, and he can tell them, okay, they're potentially going to do this. The pistol, they do this. That's the coach role for me. I think he should be the one dissecting the teams, putting the hours in so the guys can just practice on their games instead of watching demos the whole time.
Yeah, and also, I mean, if you're a team and you keep running, let's say you're tired, you keep losing to the same particular round, sometimes if you're in the game, it can be pretty hard to realize that you're doing the same mistake over and over. Nice to have a sixth person who's sort of a little bit detached from that and can just say, look, it's this same strat that keeps failing, or the hold on B, every time you do this, they throw these particular grenades and it fails, so stop doing that.
It's more like a forum, I guess. He can bounce ideas off and say, have you tried Molotoving this position? Have you tried seeing whether he's playing from there?
Yeah, and just to add this as well, which is a bit weird, actually I think Dennis probably has what it takes to call for this team. So I mean, I'm pretty sure Dennis has.
This is where it gets interesting because before in the previous lineups they've been in, obviously with Quitten and all of those issues, Dennis didn't believe that Quitten had the credibility, and they weren't listening to things he was saying in that previous lineup back in the LGB days. So that was a recurring problem there. Now you've got to have an ego to be a good player, but what happens if these players who are all good, all experienced, all accomplished, what gives that coach the authority to tell them how to play the game?
And as well.
Yeah.
What has this guy done?
Yeah.
Has he competed at this level? Has he all these sorts of things that could actually kind of fall apart there?
That's the whole thing. So the coach, doesn't matter what level he plays at, as long as he can analyze everything and he knows the teams, that's when he's effective. It doesn't really matter.
You've got to have the respect of your players.
But someone who hasn't played at a top level doesn't really know how certain teams will react, or hasn't got that incentive to make reactive calls, and that's when I question the whole idea of it. I understand where they're coming from, the pressure's off the players, they can just concentrate on killing people, but without that leadership and that person to look to and listen to mid-game, I think it's going to be difficult for them to get any frags.
There's one big point to be made, and it's really simple as well, and it can be shockingly simple, but it's to have somebody who's actually outside of the game to call a timeout.
Yeah.
That's so important.
We've seen so many teams get the timeout thing wrong. Like,
and not call it, or, when they really desperately should be the ones like calling a timeout to break the momentum, they don't do it. But then you have players, you have teams like with Vugo or Nyak for Titan, they actually step in and say, all right, timeout right now. Like, just stop that game, timeout, talk about it, figure it out, and then get back into it. And there's like some crazy stat as well going on with like teams like Fnatic, etc. They have like 100% win rate after taking a timeout. They come back into the round, win that round, and that's usually like the beginning of the end for their opponents. So having a coach back there who can just actually take that step back and say, I'm not in the game, I'm not feeling the pressure the same way, but I can see things are starting to go south. Break that momentum right now.
So the teams are ready, guys. I'm going to nail you down for some quick predictions. Anders, I think you said 2-0 to Virtus Pro. Sticking with that? Nothing's changed?
No.
Sam?
I kind of like the idea of Dust 2 being in there. That could go crazy. So I'm actually going to say that Kingwin could make this an interesting show, and we can go 2-1. Still VP, but I think they can pick up a map.
After watching them yesterday, they had a lot to learn. Hopefully they did the homework back at the hotel, worked out what they had to do. I think Dust 2, like Jungle will be closer. I don't see any realm them winning it, but 2-0, but hopefully Dust 2 can be interesting. Yeah,
I'm going to agree with 2-0 to Virtus Pro. So without any further ado, thanks for your thoughts, Henry. We're going to be right back. And of course, we're going to now throw over to the premier CSGO casting duo. Anders and Sam, let's get this show on the road. Kingwin versus Virtus Pro. Take it away, boys.